phone?
Says we're live.
Okay. I'm looking at it on my phone. It says it'll begin in a few minutes. Oh. Hello?
Oh,
No, it works. It works.
it works.
Oh, fuck it.
Cool.
We're live.
All right.
Moment of silence.
Um, all right. Let's start the show at 10:30 on the dot.
Oh my God. Just started, dude. No one's even going to listen.
Yeah, but what
How do
if?
we know? How do we know if they're listening?
It says we have one viewer.
All right.
Is it my mom? Hi, Mom.
I mean, it's definitely your mom. No, just kidding. She's with me. Go. Someone got a good joke.
DJ's on his game.
God. Nothing's showing up in the. I don't know. Maybe I'm just stupid.
Anyways, I guess that can be like a thing for us.
To start by me making fun of you.
No, like actually saying like, hey, we'll record it this time. Tune in if you want. We can make that like a thing they can plan on.
When I'm not in Buffalo, that's going to be easy. When I'm when I'm in Buffalo, it'll be a lot harder because
yeah, I mean,
I could make it easier if I wanted to.
All right.
How do you? I don't even see it. You must see it. I don't see any viewers and say any of that. I buy it though.
Yeah, it's in the little thing in the bottom right. All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Morningscape podcast. I am Matt Moody, joined by DJ Mitchell for opening night. DJ, are you ready?
Oh, I am ready. I cannot wait to get back to gambling. Massive slates, massive prizes. Some superstars in new places, some superstars still in the same place. We have Par Lindholm, of course, joining Toronto, which is the one that most people will be targeting. And we also have someone funny on San Jose. Let's think. Who is it going to be? Who's new there besides the main guy?
Suomeli.
Oh, yeah, Suomeli. Antti Suomeli coming in. Yep. So it's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. So, yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so if you do not know who we are a daily fantasy hockey podcast. We record usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and if there's a larger slate on the other 3 days of the week, we will tend to cover those. So be sure to check back often, especially in the early going. The contests are huge, so if you haven't played NHL before, now's a perfect time to get in. Promise, there's plenty more like you, and it's not too hard to pick up. So with all of that said, DJ, 50K to first on DraftKings.
Yeah.
So, but not just that. Like, we don't just have that. We have like some legitimate like 5K to first in the $27 tournament. You can turn $27 into $5,000. We've only got 4 games on Wednesday. Thursday's the massive 10 gamer. So, this is kind of a nice little warm up to get us started for the main course on Thursday. But yeah, this is going to be fun. So looking at the slate, we have 4 games: Montreal at Toronto, Boston at Washington, Calgary at Vancouver, and Anaheim at San Jose. What do you think about this slate? Is there any obvious blowout spots that you're looking at or anything of the sort? Or is it kind of one of those things where we're just going to have to dig and see what values we find?
Yeah, I think one thing that happens a lot earlier in the season is people find these new names. There's a couple guys we're going to hit on for sure, and people find these guys and they're like, "Oh my god, this guy's minimum salary. This guy's this price. I got to talk myself into it." Make sure that you know the player profile before you just jam him in your lineup. We actually did some research before the podcast. We, as in mainly Matt, and we found that some of these guys might be better plays than others at very cheap prices. And I also think it's important that you're trying to figure out these power plays before they come in, because just because they ran in preseason doesn't mean they're going to run in the regular season. So we do have a couple of them that we have confirmed, but hopefully tomorrow we get all of them before the slate hits, because that's really where you're going to want to go.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about preseason, it's important to know what sort of game your team is playing in. Like, if you're looking at a team that was playing all of their star players, then sure, those power play units are relatively stable. But if there's, a couple big names missing, you can't just assume that a lower level guy on the first power play is going to stick. So, what we tend to look for in daily fantasy plays in hockey are, first off, guys who can score goals, as goals are the most valuable. You can't score goals without shooting. It's pretty proven that the more shots on goal, the more goals your guy's going to score. There are some guys who are better at scoring than others, but shooting is much more repeatable than actual goal scoring. So we tend to target high shooters. Guys who generate shots can be found by looking at shots or by looking at something called shot attempts, or Corsi, iCorsi specifically. So that's kind of our direct approach there. And then finding guys to go with those goal scorers, namely their line mates. Again, super basic off the top, but if you're playing hockey, you want to play guys alongside their line mates, because coaches roll out their guys in 3-man units for forwards and 5-man power play units, including forwards and defensemen. And those are your, neighbors of production. Like, they're highly correlated, super lethal. If a couple goals get scored by a line or a power play unit, the daily fantasy players who have all the members of that unit will likely benefit from it. So just a quick off the top, that's kind of what we're looking for in these 4 games. So let's dive right into it. Let's start with Montreal at Toronto. As DJ alluded to, huge acquisition in the offseason. Toronto took an already loaded forward group and added John Tavares. DJ, there's a lot of names here on this Toronto team now, and they're all playing together in the power play.
Yeah, it's exciting. Oh, sorry.
You can't fit all of them in, so do you have a lean one way or the other?
Wow. I mean, honestly, I think it's more than okay to try to get as much exposure as you can, but it looks like to me that you're either going to want to go with Tavares and Marner as kind of like your 2 stack, or you're going to want to go just maybe, is Austin Matthews kind of a solo guy? Yeah, he's more of a solo guy as far as power play. There's no one on his first line that's also on his power play, while you have Marner and Tavares first line. Well, I mean, it's kind of a 1A, 1B they're going to run. So if you want to throw Morgan Riley with that, you can. His price is, I would say, fair, but at the same time, it might be a little bit high for me. So I think that Tavares Marner is kind of my first look as like a mini stack. If you can find a way to get that with Matthews, it's possible, but at the same time, you're gonna have to find some real salary dumps. It's available, but like I said at the beginning of the show, if you just jam in these salary dumps, you're probably not going to get the exposure, because some guys might be line 1 or line 2, and they might only play 10 to 12 minutes. So
yeah,
it's going to be tough to do. But I think that I'm looking at Tavares with Marner as kind of my top 2 in the game.
Yeah, so I think that's like the smart decision, especially based on that stacking, like you're mentioning. I do think, though, that Toronto is a relatively like public play at this point. Like, people know Toronto is going to be nasty, and they know that Marner and Tavares are playing together at both 5-on-5 and on the power play. I kind of feel like here, based on these power play units, that if you're going to stack something like what happens in Pittsburgh, like when you can stack Crosby and Malkin together and get, relatively low, super low ownership on those 2 combined, that might be the way to go. Like, you can obviously play Marner too, but I kind of feel like Tavares and Matthews are going to be the ones pulling the trigger here. Marner as the playmaker, and Kadri is more of like the bumper type who tries to draw guys away from, the obvious lethal shooters in Tavares and Matthews. So I actually really like the idea of using some of these like salary relief guys that we have on the slate and fitting in, at least in GPPs, Matthews along with Tavares, because I think that they can combine on some power play goals, and you don't necessarily need the 5-on-5 line mates of Matthews to, for him to have a big game. So that's where I'm leaning initially. I will say I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to be spending on these Toronto guys versus some of the other teams we're going to talk about, namely Washington and San Jose. But that's like my GPP thoughts on the Toronto side.
Yeah, I think it's worth considering at least. And like when you make lineups, always mess around with these things. Try Tavares and Matthews, try throwing in Marner, and then maybe changing it up, and just continue to kind of, just change everything a couple times. Don't just fall in love with the stack and then think it has to be in there. Because I think Tavares and Matthews makes a ton of sense. But looking at let's move over to the Montreal side, because there's definitely some interest here.
One more thing before we move on. You mentioned Morgan Rielly as a solid play.
I said for the price, I'm not positive on it, but like it's available. It's like It's fine.
Yeah, I was initially pretty skeptical just based on the fact that I feel like he's a relatively low floor play. But looking at it more closely, to end the year last year in all situations, which included I guess you would call it the prime power play role last year too, but he was basically like a John Carlson type shooter. And like Carlson probably is a better goal scorer, but Morgan Rielly was shooting the puck just as much as like a Carlson was, or even a PK Subban's kind of in that same neighborhood. So I've actually kind of softened on my like don't play Morgan Rielly stance. But that was just something I wanted to point out, because I think Morgan Rielly's a decent play, if not like my preferred play here, which I didn't expect to say. But Montreal, tell me about him.
All right, so I don't know if we have confirmed power play lines, but what is at least expected is going to be Gallagher with Armia, Tatar, and then Drouin. I'm not exactly sure where they're going to put him. He's kind of going to be, I think, more of a trigger guy, but who knows? And then Petrie at the point. So that is, I don't mind Petrie, but again, like at defense, it's kind of like, are you really going to pay $4.9 for Petrie? It's kind of a little bit like, I don't know. You can do it, but at the same time, I feel like you might want to spend up, especially with Burns and Carlson kind of being pretty fairly priced. Montreal overall, I don't think it's a bad play because Toronto's going to push the pace. There's going to be opportunity there. The question is, where do you want to land? And you got Kotkaniemi, who will be on the first, well, I don't know. I guess line 1 and 2 are kind of, I would say, getting a similar run. But
I call it the first line. Yeah,
I call it the first line. He's centering Drouin and Armia, but he's not on that first power play. So Kotkaniemi is minimum salary. And to be honest, I don't think we have a ton of information on what he's going to profile as. But at minimum salary, I think he'll get decent run. So I think he's an option. But then again, he's going to be at center. So if you're thinking like, oh, this is my punt with Tavares and Matthews, you've already taken away your utility. And you're going to have to find stacks with wings. It's just exclusively wings, which obviously there's no line that runs 3 wingers. So it'll be a little bit difficult. So just if you're going to game stack this, you're going to have to be really creative. And a lot of people do like the game stack Toronto because you'll see throughout the year they push the pace. There's a lot of Corsi opportunity there. I'm not sure if you want to go too heavy on Montreal. They're not great overall, obviously. And you might be, I don't know, hard pressed to find a great stack that really gets you excited.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on Montreal?
Kotkaniemi in the preseason in 4 games had 3 shots on goal. That was on 9 shot attempts, so it doesn't seem like a terrible number, I will say. But certainly, like you said, center is pretty high value on this slate, so I'm not sure if I would use a center slot on like a pure punt, especially a guy like Kotkaniemi who, I don't know if I trust Jonathan Drouin to kind of be like a play driver. Who were the other forwards on that power play that you were mentioning? Did you say Charles Hudon or no?
No. Okay. He's not listed on either of them right now, but that could change because they're not confirmed.
That's really interesting because they kind of used him in like a prime offensive role last year, and he's so cheap.
Well, I mean, it doesn't even show him on the Lions. Wait, I'm on the wrong thing. let me go back to the right thing. It's he's on the fourth line with Pekka and Bukanic. That's
Okay, interesting.
so.
And then
I don't understand either, but whatever. Just do well.
Yeah, and I think a solid one-off play is Arturi Lehkonen at 3.5. He is a very, very steady shot producer, and towards the end of last year, he was getting in the range of 17 to 18 minutes a night, like a solid top six role for him. I really like him, like his game in general. He profiles as a great DFS player when when he's given the opportunity. And I think on this team, especially with no Pacioretty, he's going to get a lot of run. And so I think it's a one-off play for 3.5. He opens up a lot of salary, and he's safe. We kind of have we have some guys that are in the threes to even the 2000s that are like, wow, like this guy is like, he might actually be kind of good, at any position, center, wing, defense. But I think kind of on this slate, especially in cash games, if you want like a sure thing, Arturi Lehkonen is as close to a sure thing as you're going to get at this price range on this slate in this sport, because hockey is pretty high variance. We'll talk about another guy at the same price as Lehkonen, who I think could be a viable alternative to him. But Arturi Lehkonen, I think, is my favorite play in Montreal here, and I'm not all that interested in Jeff Petrie. I like him as a play, but I think given his price and given the other defensemen on this slate, I'm either going to spend way up above him or kind of settle in the tier below him. So,
I'm okay with that.
Any interest in the goalies here? I know we don't talk about goalies, but maybe for the first week or so, we could kind of, spoon feed a few goalie plays in there, like goalie takes.
For fun, I mean, Anderson's probably going to be the best Vegas odds, but at the same time,
he is. Yeah, they're minus 220, I think, favorites right now.
It's fine if you have 8-4. It's fine. I might look to get a little contrarian and goal. But we'll see. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, there's a ton of narrative that's going to surround the opening slate. Like, I know I've heard, I'm not sure how accurate this is, but someone mentioned that teams that raise the banner for winning the cup, like, lose way more often than not than they win. I don't know if that's true. I'm going to look into it, but at the same time, like, I don't read into those. I know a lot of people in the group me and be like, "Oh, did you hear like this narrative?" And I'm like, I'm not going to read into it. But at the same time, like, you're going to hear a lot of crazy stuff. I think the safest play is definitely Anderson, but I'm probably not going to do it.
All right, so closing out that game, let's go to Boston at Washington. Your defending Stanley Cup Washington Capitals. I don't know when that'll get old to say. It's just it's a whole new world we're living in, DJ. So a couple of news and notes right off the top on the Washington side of things. Tom Wilson, yes, that first line, Tom Wilson suspended for. Do we have a game? Do we have a game number yet, or no?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I actually don't think. I actually think we do, but he's going to be out. Brett Connolly is going to.
Yep, that was who was there. Practice.
Right, but if he hasn't had the hearing yet.
I don't think I think it was Wednesday.
Okay. The hearing is on Wednesday. So yeah, it'll be done before the game. So yes, Tom Wilson will be out. Replacing him will be Brett Connolly. He is 3.5. Not necessarily a volume shooter, but given that role and given the fact that he's a regular on the second power play unit, I think he has enough upside here to be well worth a play at only 3.5. I think that's a solid play we'll talk about. And then on the Boston side of things, Patrice Bergeron dealing with an injury should play, and Torrey Krug is out for probably at least a month. So we'll have some value open up on the Boston blue line. Which team would you like to start with, Deej?
Let's start with Boston. I think there's a little more interest in this team for me. At least for I know where I might go, and that guy is Ryan Donato. I think he's a smash play. He is the net front presence on that first power play. He is, I cannot remember, 4.6K on DraftKings. He's not on the top line. He's on the third line, but it doesn't bother me as much, especially if I'm going with a one-off. Or, I mean, if you want to, you can stack him up with a little bit of that first line. First line is going to be expensive, though. But, yeah, so the first power play unit was Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, And then Donato at net front with Pasternak and actually Matt Grzelcyk, which was surprising to me, and I know you as well. So without Krug, Matt Grzelcyk slots in on that first power play unit. I don't expect him to get more than maybe 14 to 16 minutes, probably. With McAvoy still getting a huge Lions portion of the minutes. But that first power play definitely changes things up for Matt Grzelcyk being a little bit viable.
Yeah, the Grzelcyk news is really, really interesting. I hope that that like in morning skate we maybe will get another power play run and see the same thing, because I just kind of expected McAvoy to take in that role, given that he was the second power play unit, and would slide up. But if Grzelcyk does play there, he's only 3.5 on this slate. 3.3 actually. He's only 3.3, and he is one of those guys that I really think is like a viable DFS defender, even when he's not on the first power play unit, just because I like his offensive game a lot. He's always looking to push it. And you look at his shot numbers from the blue line, and they're, pretty respectable. Like, looking at a guy like Cam Fowler or Ristolainen, Drew Doughty, all three of those guys who you would consider to be more of like minutes horses / power play one guys, not necessarily shot monsters like the Brent Burns or Erik Karlsson's, Tyson Berry's kind of, Dougie Hamilton, the obvious god there. But they do just enough to get the puck on net to give themselves that offensive upside. They're not like a Will Butcher type who kind of like, maybe look at a secondary assist here and there because they pass it to Taylor Hall, who passes it off of someone sticking in the net. It's just a little bit different looking at like this tier of shooter. And so I think with Grzelcyk safely in that tier, given his first power play role, he might be one of my first defensemen that I focus on building lineups around, just because of what he allows me to do elsewhere. You can fit in Burns and Karlsson. You can fit in Matthews and Tavares. You can fit in Ovechkin. Or you can fit in his Boston line mates. And it seems like you kind of like the Donato, a Donato here. Mm-hmm. Why not go, Pasternak, Donato, Grzelcyk, and go for that power play correlation? That seems like a pretty strong play. To me,
it makes sense to me to go with Grzelcyk and Donato. Sorry to cut you off, but because if Grzelcyk shoots the puck from the point, Donato's the most likely to tip it.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of like, it's just obvious. Like that's where the play is going to go through. So it makes a lot of sense to pair them up. I know it's 5-on-5. You'd be hard pressed to find them scoring, but it could happen. And I don't know. I'm willing to risk it, especially if you're saving to get, Matthews, Tavares, Burns, Karlsson, Couture, etc. So that's what you're kind of going for there. Is if they end up getting 2 goals together on the power play, which of course is rare, you're smashing. And in GPP, that's what you need.
Right, and I shouldn't mention that McAvoy not being on the first power play unit is like detrimental to his DFS value, because he's a fine play, I think, especially for the minutes he should pick up. He should be safely in the 25 to 27 minute range, and outside of his line mate, Chara, who doesn't play on the power play, McAvoy probably has like the safest minutes out of anyone sub 5K. Maybe I'd argue that like Jeff Petrie at just a hair under 5K could top that, but I don't think he'll be used quite as much as a number one as McAvoy will. So I think that if you're stacking Boston, McAvoy also works if you have the money to get up from Grzelcyk, but I think I prefer Grzelcyk even straight up. So let's go to Washington, unless you have anything else.
No, I think we're good on that. So Washington is pretty much exactly what we'd expect, besides Wilson being out, Connolly being in. I'm pretty into Jake Vrana. I think I mentioned that. Yeah, I definitely mentioned that on the Eastern Conference preview. I think he's going to be a really, really good player for them. And I also think he's going to really drive the shot metrics for the line too. That being said, he is second power play and doesn't correlate with anyone besides the defense on 5-on-5 potentially. So that's tough. But that Vrana Orlov stack is always interesting to me. I'm really hopeful that Dmitry Orlov can step up even more and just be like one of those dominant, minute hogs, as well as being a bit of a Corsi guy. That's the guy I'm going to keep an eye on more than anything. But of course, in this situation, it almost feels like Washington might get overlooked as their top power play and their top line. That's why I'm interested, is going Kuznetsov, Ovechkin with Carlson, John Carlson, of course, is interesting to me because I think a lot of people are going to target Toronto, and a lot of people might find out about Grzelcyk. I don't think that many will,
No,
and kind of go that way as well as just getting really excited about San Jose with their new, toy.
Yeah, I will say,
So.
I think people think the Washington hangover thing is like real. Like I think people actually do believe that Washington is like set for a huge step back this year. And personally, I don't see it. I know we touched on it in the season preview, so do be sure to check those out if you're looking for a more macro level look at the NHL this season. But I think Washington is going to be a very, very good team again. And Evgeny Kuznetsov realistically has just as much upside as anyone else on this slate. Ovechkin probably has the highest floor of anyone on this slate. I have some questions we'll get to on the San Jose defenseman situation because I think Burns and Ovechkin are like nominally our highest floor guys in the game. Like that's just kind of how NHL DFS goes. But Ovechkin with Kuznetsov, given a guy like Brett Connolly, who's only 3.5 and has some offensive abilities, that could be a really nice way to balance out the costs and still give yourself legitimate 2 to 3 goal upside from your line, be it all from Ovechkin or 1 goal from each guy or something. It doesn't take much for Connolly to meet value, and then that power play in Washington is just so lethal that Kuznetsov and Ovechkin should be, one of my favorite stacks here. So I did find something interesting about Jake Vrana, who you really liked, because I wasn't really expecting to want to play Jake Vrana that much because his minutes aren't necessarily all that safe. Even with his top 6 role, he regularly topped out around 14 to 15 minutes, even when he got hot in the postseason last year, which is where I think a lot of people were introduced to him. But he did get called up well before the end of the season last year. I think he played about... Actually, I'm not entirely sure when he got called up. It kind of is all a blur at this point. But in the last 30 games of the year, he was in the top 30 in the NHL in scoring chances per 60 minutes. So when he was on the ice, he was getting to the net and he was getting really good scoring opportunities. And not all of that was playing with a guy as good as Nick Backstrom. So I think at Vrana's price at sub 5K, he has so much talent that he's a guy who I think makes for a nice one-off play. And if you're really looking to crazy, play him with Dmitry Orlov for that second power play correlation.
I said that.
You did. Great. So
great.
Say it again.
I think we said it twice. I think that's good enough. No, you went absolutely balls to the wall there, and I loved it. I was just like, man, did he just come back to the conclusion I went right off the start? But yeah. Basically, I think this game's going to get overlooked a bit. I think Washington's going to get overlooked. I'm definitely interested because they could smash because, they're good. Anyways, are we ready to move on to the late guys, the late games?
Yes, we are.
Calgary at Vancouver in the Battle of Western Canada, right? Is that a thing? They do that? Who's Vancouver's biggest rival before Seattle joins the league?
Seattle, but I would say Edmonton, but because the Battle of Alberta is Edmonton and Calgary. So,
I know that.
I don't really know if they have
do they hit Toronto like everyone else? Is that how it works?
Yeah, that actually might be it.
All right, let's just go with that. Okay, so anyways, though, back to this game. I'm going to be honest. I really was thinking, the Flames aren't that good, but looking at their lines, I'm a little bit excited. I'm a little excited about this. They had Gaudreau with Monahan and Lindholm, which is way better than having Ferland. Tkachuk with Backlund and Furlik, which is fun. That's the same as last year. And then Dylan Dubé with Ryan. First name is what?
Derek.
Derek. There it is. And then James Neal, the real deal. Line 4 doesn't really matter that much. Although, actually, Sam Bennett with Jankowski, you want to get 12 minutes. But anyways, so Dylan Dubé makes the team, which was the first surprise for sure. Now, I only know of him from the World Juniors, to be honest. We don't have that much information on him. Also, his number is definitely wrong in Daily Faceoff. If you go on Daily Faceoff, it's wrong. Will he get power play time? I'm gonna go with probably not. He's probably
Uh,
not worth the time. Is he on the slate? That might be the best question. Yep, he's on the slate, minimum salary as a center
yeah,
as
we
well.
can. I think we can do better.
We could do better. Kakiniemi is just a better option, I think. I'm
But
gonna
yes, if Dubé does work his way into a role in the top six, which I consider his line to be the third line, Dubé might be worthwhile. If you're looking to get crazy in the $5 tournament, though, I honestly don't think any of the guys we mentioned are too crazy to play in that $5 tournament because you need to hit the absolute nuts to win 50K.
yeah,
So
true.
you probably should get a little crazy, to be honest. So keep
Yeah.
Dubé in mind.
So looking at Dubé, I mean, I don't know for certain. He definitely seems to me like he has some finishing ability at the same
Oh, he
time.
is. Yeah, his offensive skills are off the charts. Like
Yeah,
they're actually really, really good.
yeah. So I think he's going to be a guy to consider. But at first game in the NHL, sometimes you might Austin Matthew it and 4 goals, but I don't see that from him tomorrow, to be honest. And it's a wait. It's gonna be a wait and see for me. Like I'm not gonna get overexcited about a 2.5 guy just because he has some good numbers in the WHL. But the Calgary side, again, it's interesting. Vancouver's pretty bad. Their defense is very bad, and their goaltending is also bad. So if you want to go with Calgary, there's nothing against it. I don't know where I would tell you to go. The Monahan Gaudreau stack is a decent price, but at the same time, I don't always love doing that. You're gonna probably want to stack it with Giordano. That would be the power play correlation.
I think so.
It does look like that whole first line and Giordano is on the same power play. So, I mean, get crazy if you want, but if you go 4-man stack here, you're definitely going to be contrarian. Which again, like, nothing against it. If will we have the sim tomorrow? That's the main question.
We should.
We should.
I don't foresee the issues currently impacting it to last much longer, but I'll talk to Doug tomorrow to make sure
Okay.
that
If the sim loves it, I might do it
yeah, so
just for fun.
I'm honestly not that interested in this game. We'll talk about Vancouver in a bit, but for Calgary, I think the 3-man stack that I'm looking at here is Elias Lindholm with Giordano, playing them with Johnny Gaudreau. Gaudreau at 6.4 kind of feels a little bit low, especially on the slate. Like Gaudreau was, what, 84 points in 80 games last year. He's a point per game player with really good shot numbers as well. Like, he's not like an Ovechkin type shooter, but he is certainly not going to leave you for goose egg too often. If you ask me last year, I would say, oh, Gaudreau's so inconsistent. Like, he always seemed to burn me. Like, no matter whenever I played either Backlund's line or Monahan's line, the other line just absolutely smashed. So I kind of had that, like, those blinders. But given the offseason and some time to recuperate, I feel like Johnny Gaudreau might go underlooked here. Vancouver is very, very bad, as we'll touch on. And, it's I kind of feel like Gaudreau might be better than the guys right below him in price, maybe outside of Marner. But let's move to the Vancouver side, unless you had anyone else.
No, I'm fine with that. I mean, the Vancouver side is the only thing I could say is that you could get some decent correlation with a very, very cheap price tag. That's they're kind of their saving grace, but at the same
Well,
time,
I mean, who? Like that's the thing. Who's really cheap? Bo Horvat's almost 6K.
okay, I'm
Besser's
saying
like that's kind of my problem with them. They're not cheap as bad as I
enough.
think they are. Is my personal
I
opinion.
think I think my feelings on Besser, but it's still at the same time at 6'3", I think you're gonna find better correlation. With, I mean, like it's the same as Pasternak, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Yeah, same as Pasternak, and I think you're gonna want to maybe look at the Donato Pasternak Kreslik stack, which is very like a good savings as well as being like a better option. I just think that Pedersen. Again like, do you have the stats still on Pedersen? Like he
Yeah.
seems
So
like he's gonna be really, 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 really good, and
so
possibly
Elias
bad.
Pettersson is like likely the Calder favorite here. Like in the NHL this year, the Rookie of the Year, and he played in Sweden last year among like grown men. Blah blah blah. He led the league in scoring. Like he's an awesome offensive player. Some of the passes that he's put on in preseason are like legitimately jaw dropping. And he's a really good shooter too. He had 24 goals, finished second in that league, again, with a bunch of men in scoring goals behind Buffalo Sabre Victor Olofsson, I might add. But
Might as well.
for this slate, Pettersson is, he's 4.7. This is probably the lowest you're going to see him. But I just don't know, like, I don't really know who I would play him with because I think that the first line is a little bit expensive, and those are all of his power play mates. I think Alex Edler's just a little bit too pricey for what I want to do on this slate, especially if you're trying to correlate the San Jose guys or get one of the top power play guys from Washington or Toronto, which certainly seems to make sense to me. And Edler's not really a big cap savings off of them, so. While I think they're okay, I think I want to do better for myself and not really limit myself to see how far Vancouver can take me, especially knowing what we know and that Vancouver should be one of the worst teams in the league this year.
I just don't want to be pigeonholed by thinking just because the team's bad doesn't that means that they have no good options. And that the problem is Pettersson really only would be a great correlation with Edler, but I do love Edler. I don't think 5-2 is that bad. But you're going to want to stack him because all the other defensemen that we've mentioned so far are stackable for sure. And then it's like, if you're going to go Grzelcyk and you're going to go with all those guys, are you really going to handcuff yourself with Edler? And I don't know. I agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm not overlooking Vancouver. I don't know. That's pretty much all I had to say there, I guess. I'm just not going to overlook him. I'm going to give it a chance. I think Pettersson might get overlooked as like, oh, he's a rookie and his price is way above the other rookies, so I'm not going to play him. And I don't know. I like him just fine.
Okay. Any other plays here? Nikolai Goldobin is playing with Pettersson at 5-on-5. Should be power. Yeah, he should be power play too as well. So that's
he's a sniper, something. But he's really cheap. He definitely profiles to be a good shot guy.
Agreed. Yep.
But I don't know how many minutes he's gonna get. But then again, like where are the minutes gonna go? You know what I mean? Are they really gonna?
Right, yeah. There's no more Sedins here, so it almost might be freeing for them.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. All right, why don't we go to the last game?
Moving to the Erik Karlsson, introductory special. San Jose Sharks taking on the Anaheim Ducks. To me, this is my favorite game of the night, as everyone should know by now. I'm an unabashed Ducks lover, despite being a Sabres fan. I everything they do is just like, oh my god, I could use that for daily fantasy, and it hasn't stopped. So let's start on the San Jose side though, because they're likely to be the more popular side here, and rightly so. I'm pretty sure they are in the minus 160 ballpark for like Vegas favorites. So minus 170 as of right now. So San Jose is going to be popular. They traded for Erik Karlsson. They now have maybe the two best offensive defensemen in the NHL playing alongside each other. So quickly, their first power play is going to look like Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson, Logan Couture as the three men along the top, Joe Pavelski in front of the net, and Joe Thornton kind of as the down low puck distributor guy. So if you're looking to stack, that's where I would start. But I don't think the options end there. So DJ, do you have like a favorite line from this game or plays? Or are you just looking to stack the first power play unit and, kind of ride that to fruition?
Yeah, I think the first power play stack's pretty interesting at least. Like, I don't know. It's great. It's going to be piled on. I think if you want to get contrarian and you don't want to go crazy heavy invested in this game, you might be finding some Evander Kane. I don't think anyone's going to have him. I think he's going to be probably the lowest owned guy for his ceiling, if that makes sense. I know that's not really a metric, but just because Evander Kane's on line 3 and second power play doesn't mean he's not going to shoot the puck 7 or 8 times on net, because he shoots from everywhere. And
right. And at 5-on-5, he's almost always going to have a Burns or Karlsson out there with him.
Yes, exactly. So I don't hate it at all. Just thinking like it's a bit out there. I'll admit it.
Do you have their lines confirmed, by the way?
No, that's the only thing. If we don't have their lines confirmed, I mean,
right.
Especially if like in morning skate, they'll probably have a morning skate tomorrow. I'd be pretty shocked.
Yeah.
But if we find out that Kane's up there on line 1 or something, yeah, I'm going to really be interested, because I think he's a very underrated I mean, I don't know if he's underrated anymore, but he definitely was an underrated DFS asset. And now, I mean, if he's on the third line, even though, like, he's going to be shooting the puck a ton.
Right. Evander Kane is regularly leading the league in shots on goal. It's almost like a DeAndre Hopkins if you're like new to the sport and you want guys who just get a ton of targets. Like that's kind of Evander Kane. Like he's gonna put up those shot numbers, and it just takes one of them to go in the net for him to be an awesome fantasy play. And when you have Burns and Carlson breaking you out of your own end, I think Kane can do a lot of damage on the rush, and he's so willing to shoot the puck at all times. It'll make it so much better to watch the game knowing that you have Evander Kane, because sometimes you'll watch and you'll go, oh my god, this guy crossed the line on a 2-on-1, like, oh, but he passed it right into the defender's feet. What are you doing, man? And like, just give me those points. Evander Kane, you don't need to tell him. Like, he's shooting the puck is the second he crosses that line. He's getting rebounds. Like, it's really, it's almost like exciting to watch Evander Kane play hockey, which is, it's kind of, I don't know if that's something a lot of people say, but like he's just such a great fantasy asset that I do think that he's a decent one-off play, or to stack him with one of these premier defensemen.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Honestly, I think that's going to be super contrarian out there. I mean, if you're not going to do that, I think I'm looking at Logan Couture, and I'm also, I mean, Pavelski's great as well, but I think I'm looking at Logan Couture a little bit more than Pavelski, to be honest.
Yeah, you're going to see Joe Thornton at 4.3. That is just the riskiest play in the book. There's a situation where San Jose scores 5 goals, including 3 on the power play, and Thornton comes out with 2 DK points just because he doesn't shoot. He's very, very selective, I should say, with the shooting, and he's almost always going to defer to the guy at the point or his line mate Pavelski at 5-on-5. Like, that's just what Joe Thornton does. He's 40 now, so pretty much set in his ways. So I would not play Joe Thornton, but again, 50K up top the first. Anything can happen, so don't come back and yell at us when a team with Joe Thornton and it wins the 50K, because this slate's going to be crazy. Just prepare for that. So I'll second your Logan Couture. I actually think that he is low-key an awesome play here. I think there's more than enough reason to move on from the top 2 Toronto guys if you want to kind of be, honestly, probably the most contrarian thing you can do on this slate is to fade both Tavares and Matthews and go with some of these lower price center guys. Logan Couture on this power play unit is going to get so many good looks. He's the trigger guy, opposite of Brent Burns, with Erik Karlsson and Thornton likely playing as more distributor types. We have to see how this power play operates, though, because moving to defense, Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson are both in the 7,000 range on DraftKings. That's something that kind of worries me, especially for Karlsson, because he's the shiny new toy. He was the guy in Ottawa who blocked a ton of shots, took a ton of shots. He's coming to San Jose, kind of stepping on Brent Burns' turf, where Brent Burns in San Jose is the guy who blocks a ton of shots, takes a ton of shots on the power play. I don't know if there's enough shots to go around for the both of these guys. And I think given the way that Karlsson plays, I think Burns eats up most of the work here. So I actually don't think Erik Karlsson at 6.9 thousand, 6.9K. I don't know why I said that so weird, but
because it's funny.
Yeah, I guess it's nice. But but I worry about Karlsson's floor, especially here. I think if you're spending up for one of these guys, it almost has to be Burns until we see otherwise, just because I think Karlsson will be passing it more than he is shooting it. And, you're more likely to get goal points out of Brent Burns, basically, which, should, and shots on goal, obviously, which both count towards your fantasy scoring more than a primary or secondary assist will. Do you agree with me there? Or are you kind of are you looking to go, all in on Karlsson here, given that he's no longer on a, terrible Ottawa team outside of him?
You could really talk me into either of them without a possible problem. I'm totally down. There's really no, him with Vlasic too. I think that almost opens him up at maximum capacity. You know what I mean? There's really no reason you should hold back because Vlasic is a beast. So I could definitely talk into Carlson over Burns, but at the same time, like, I mean, I don't know. I'm leaning
Yeah,
Brent
and
Burns to
we
like the
kind of have
similar
to see what the
price.
minutes look like too, because the minutes could dictate the story too. If they use Brent Burns in a legitimate second pairing role, almost like a Torrey Krug kind of, where Torrey Krug's their power play one guy, but it's McAvoy and Chara getting 27 minutes a night, and Burns gets 22. Well, yeah, that's probably the difference you need there, just to pick up those peripheral points. But given what we know, and given that I expect it to be relatively split down the middle in terms of ice time, I side with Burns here. And that's just kind of where I'm going to end up. Let's
Yeah,
transition to Anaheim, unless you have anyone else. I know we're going pretty long here for a 4-game slate, but
yeah, for sure.
it's exciting.
But I mean, just Timo Meyer is cool. But let's move on.
All right. Anaheim has dealt a couple of big blows now. Corey Perry, their first line winger, out for what was it? 3 months?
Months. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know.
like 3 to 4 months. So that opens up a role for someone up top. Andre Kasha, who people thought might be the guy to take that first line role and run with it, suffered a concussion in their most recent preseason game and is likely to miss an extended period of time going into the year. With concussions, you have no idea what the symptoms are going to be like, but he's almost certainly out on Wednesday, given that they don't even have a timeline yet. And I would expect him to be out for the next couple of weeks at least as well. So that opens up some interesting values here alongside their first line of Getzlaff and Raquel, who in and of themselves are relatively cheap. We have Troy Terry, who is 4,400 here. He's a good prospect. Like, he played at Denver and was he a Hobie Baker finalist?
Probably at least a finalist. I don't know. I could
Yeah,
look.
but anyway, he's a really good player. I actually don't have his stats up in front of me because I'm a bad host, but he's a guy who you should certainly be keeping an eye out for. But the Perry injury actually interests me in one guy more so than Troy Terry on the first line, and it's Jacob Silfverberg on the second line, because Perry's injury opened up a power play one job, and it seems all signs indicate that Jacob Silfverberg will take that role over. So DJ, what are your thoughts on Anaheim here before I go into my Silfverberg diatribe?
Well, Troy Terry's stats that you alluded to, where he had 14 goals and 34 assists at Denver, which is very good. He also had, for the World Juniors, he had 5 assists. He also, obviously, as many will remember, kind of took over the shootout and won the game against Canada back 2 years ago. What's that noise? Did you hear that? All right. You still there, Matt?
Yeah, I think it was my mic coming unplugged somehow.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, though, so that's that. And then there's one other guy you didn't mention. Or we want to get to that now on as far as line 2? Or do you want to
Yeah,
just
you could mention it.
All right. Whew. Maxime Comtois. Comtois.
I think so. I think so.
That's
Awfully close to two of the worst names you could call someone, but I think you pulled it off.
Yeah, yeah. He is from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. He had a lot of very good stats as far as being a goal scorer type, and he had similar metrics to one Alex Lafreniere, who of course we all know and love as being the next first overall draft pick after Jack Hughes. So he's 2 years off, but still he's a beast. Remember the name.
Yes.
So yeah, that's kind of their top 6 at least, which is pretty banged up at best. I think that they're kind of bad, and I said they wouldn't make the playoffs. And I know you just, yeah, that's the noise I expect.
But DJ, you just told me with Vancouver to not worry about a team being bad for fantasy
I'm not, because I think there's a good play here in Silverberg, which I wanted to let you take it away on.
All right, yeah. I mean, this entire second line, actually, of Henrique, Silfverberg, and Comtois, I think are a really, really intriguing stack. Henrique and Silfverberg both will be on the first power play unit. Henrique at 4,600 and Silfverberg at 4,800 both make a lot of sense. But the reason I mentioned highlight Silfverberg in particular is because Jacob Silfverberg is one of the more reliable shooters in the NHL that I don't think people know about. Like, looking at a per minute basis, especially at 5-on-5, just because Silverberg does kill so many penalties and he does like a lot of the defensive dirty work for this team. His numbers are really impressive shooting the puck. He puts up regularly solid floor stats. He wasn't on the first power play much, if at all, last year, for a variety of reasons. But looking at 2 years ago, especially like in their playoff run 2 years ago, he put up some monster fantasy games. And I think that he is more than capable of doing the same here, even in this relatively difficult matchup. And I think that jumping on these prices, I mean, both Henrique and Silverberg below 5K seems a little bit ridiculous to me, um, for their upside. So in tournaments, I'm really going hard at that line in particular. And if you play Comtois at 2.5 with his awesome DFS skill set, which is a really good scorer and a pretty high shot producer to go with that. Um, I just think there's a lot of value that you open up here to getting your Bostons, Washingtons, Torontos, San Jose's, and feeling good about your upside outside of that stack. And so I think they might be the key to unlocking the upside that you need on this slate. So I guess that's kind of a hot take. Let's go to defense, DJ. Do you want to play any of these Anaheim defenders?
Just Montour if possible, but
Yeah,
I don't think
Montour's
power
not
play at all.
likely to be first power play, so that's the only downside there. But 3.8 is a decent price for a guy like Montour, who, if you catch him, he'll sneak in from the blue line a lot. He's more than likely, or he's more likely than most others on this slate to get like a cheap backdoor goal, just because he's so active offensively.
Yeah. Other than that, I think if you fade San Jose completely, John Gibson's a fine goalie to play in net just because I think he is arguably the best goalie in the league. I don't think that's a hot take. And if you think that John Gibson might stand on his head and just kind of shut the door on San Jose, which is possible because goalies can just do that because why not? Then I think you go for it. I think also, I mean, the one saving grace for Anaheim is how good their defense is. They have a very, very good top four and a suspect third pairing, but they won't play them that much. So I'm totally fine with playing Gibson and fading San Jose while I love San Jose, as I've already mentioned. I mean, I love them because they can put the puck on net a ton, which means that Gibson stops all those pucks,
Right.
and he's the best goalie on the night. So you never know if the puck's going to go in or not. Puck luck, whatever you want to call it. So that's kind of my last note here.
Yeah, I think that's well said on goalie talk. So let's wrap up the show with our line stacks of the night. Do you have a line ready to go? I alluded to one being that Anaheim line of Henrique, Silverberg, and Comtois. So I'll take one more high-priced one. DJ, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, I'll go with the Donato, Pasternak, Grzelcyk, which is actually not that expensive. Maybe Marchand as well if you want to go all four. No, I think that one, I don't know. That's kind of my cheap one, I guess, without Marchand. I think my expensive one is going to be on the other. You know what? I'll just let you go first. I'll let you take one before I get wild here.
All right. I think if I'm spending on a stack, I'm gonna go Logan Couture, Burns, and do I want to go Hurdle with it? I don't think so. I think I like Couture and Burns, and maybe bring it back with a Pavelski or even a Kane, and kind of getting like the Burns double stack almost, and not necessarily worrying about Couture's correlation with that. Um, so yeah, you can go into yours.
Kind of between two. I think that my two favorite, and they're kind of on opposite ends of the ownership spectrum, would be Tavares, Matthews, and Riley. And then the other end, I'd say Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, and Carlson. So I think it's going to come down to kind of the wire there. I really, really like going that double centers route, though, with Tavares and Matthews, because they'll both be high owned, but like not together. So I might really consider that.
Yeah, and you can get a little bit crazy like that, and I think that's fine. I will say, if especially in these like extremely high entry GPPs, two line stacks is likely the way you want to go. And if you want to make it a 4-man stack, I think that might be how to best account for some of these, like, what I said with Couture, Burns, and like Evander Kane or something. Like, playing a full line though is never a bad idea, even if it's a third line. I wouldn't say the fourth lines are a good idea, but the third line certainly do have merit, especially if they get some power play 2 work between them. So that's kind of my like GPP take. It's like, don't be afraid to follow your gut, especially on this slate. So it's going to be a fun one. Anything to say before we close out, Deej?
Just be sure to give us some ratings. Why not? Make sure you subscribe because it's fun and it helps and it's cool and it's what cool kids do. And if you want to be cool like me and Matt, well, you probably don't, but if you do,
Yeah.
do that
So,
stuff.
all right, if you've made it this far, and you don't know much about us, if anything, first off, be sure to follow us on Twitter at MorningscapePod, all one word, obviously, because Twitter handles are one word. But we also have a website, morningscapepod.com.
Where?
On the internet, DJ. We have one on the internet.
So let's type it into the internet in the bar, just Morningscape Pod.
Yeah, morningscapepod.com. That'll bring you right to our website. You can see some nice little background on us, and also you'll get the sim. That's a free to use projection tool. There's a nice little write-up associated with it that tells you what's in it. I hope to correspond with Doug to make sure everything is up and running. So apologies if you don't see like all the players, for instance. But it's free. So if it's there, which we plan on it being there, it's an awesome tool. Lastly, if you're not yet a part of our GroupMe, we have a chat room basically that discusses daily fantasy sports. Now that it's hockey season, we focus on daily fantasy hockey. So if you want to join the GroupMe, get on in on it. DM our Twitter account again at MorningscapePod, and DJ will set you up. So that's kind of podcast community. It's what we offer to you. And we hope you guys enjoy it, take part in it, and leave us follow us on Twitter, leave us those reviews, do whatever you can to kind of make it worth our while too, because it's a labor of love. And I'm so excited for the season to start, DJ.
I can't wait for the Sabres to not be horrible. We'll talk about them on Thursday when you hear this, Thursday morning.
Yep. So, all right. So, let's close the show right there. Wait, do we do guaranteed goals? Is that a thing still?
No, we did not.
Let's do them.
Let's do them.
We got to do guaranteed goals.
I got to do guaranteed goals.
All right.
If you're not doing guaranteed goals, what are you going to do?
Guaranteed goals. The rules has to be a sum below, what did we say, 11,000, 11.5-ish. Okay. So we
it's 11. I mean,
all right, 11. Okay, so we try and limit it to high price, low price. So we're not taking 2 studs. Do you have any guys in mind that you were thinking of?
Absolutely I do. Absolutely. I'm going to go with 120%. I'm going to go with Logan Couture and Ryan Donato.
Ooh, nice.
Ooh, spicy.
Wow.
Drops Mike.
All right, so I'm going to go with, in that same price range as Donato, I'm going to take Silfverberg, just because I think he's an awesome play, and I think he has a lot of upside. I'm actually going to grab a defender here. I'm going to take John Carlson. I like the way that this Washington team might go overlooked, and I think that John Carlson is going to go overlooked based on Burns and Carlson being right there, and Morgan Rielly and that power play unit being the talk of the town. I think John Carlson outscores all the other defenders on this slate. Hot take.
Spicy. That's the way I want it, though. All right. Close it out.
All right. So now that we've covered absolutely everything, thank you all for listening. From Doug, from DJ, and from myself, have a good slate, everybody, and we will see ya.